Staley, former Police Commissioner of Port Washington. My name is Regina Gouvenier. I'm president of the League of Women Voters, and as you know, our local league, both the state and national leagues as well, are nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose any political party or candidate. Our mission is to engage you, the voter, and provide space where all candidates for a given office can answer questions in a structured way, taking your time and effort to hear and observe candidates tonight. Our voter services work includes forums like this, voter registration, and more. We also educate voters and advocate with legislators on election reforms, the Equal Rights Amendment, protecting the environment, and healthcare reform. We only take positions on issues after studying them extensively. We hope you will consider joining the league. Membership forms are available on the table, and also the QR code on the table up there. And we hope you'll look at our website, LWV of PWM. We have a lot of information on it. Remember, the League of Women Voters is not for women only. Before I begin tonight, I know that the vetters who are going through the questions to make sure that the moderator can read them, etc., are sitting up here. So if you have questions or you want an index card to write a question down, please come up here and we'll accept them, and hopefully we'll get to answer all of your questions this evening. And now, Beth Friedman, our moderator for this evening, is the arbiter of all decisions going forward. She is from Great Neck, and Beth, the podium is yours for the forum. Thank you.
The League has used procedures like these for over 60 years to ensure a fair process and encourage civil discourse. I will now read the rules out loud. It will take about 3 minutes, so please bear with me. As Regina said, the moderator will be a member of the League from outside the district, and I live in Great Neck, so I'm not able to vote in this election. Candidates' opening statements were determined by drawing lots before the in-person event. The same order will be for opening and closing statements. Mr. Staley will speak first, and Mr. McCarthy will speak last. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes for an opening statement. After all candidates have spoken, the moderator will open the meeting with questions from the audience. Cards will be handed out for written questions, or please come up here to take an index card. These will be vetted prior to being asked so that duplicative, personal, abusive, or biased questions can be discarded. The moderator will be the arbiter of whether questions are appropriate, repetitive, or abusive. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question. At the moderator's discretion, the time for a response may be reduced as long as it is the same for everyone. There will be no rebuttal. Questions may be addressed to a specific candidate or to candidates in general, although all candidates will be given an opportunity to answer any question addressed to a specific individual. The moderator will attempt to rotate the order of responses for each question. A League member will act as timekeeper, 1/2 minute from the end of any given time period. The timekeeper will alert the speaker by a prearranged signal. And Nancy already held up the signs. When the time is up, the speaker will be allowed to finish the sentence. Repeatedly speaking past the deadline may result in a candidate losing time for a future question or for others getting additional time. Candidates will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Since the purpose of the meeting is to determine the candidate's views, no substitute speaker will be allowed to appear should a candidate be unable to attend in person. No written or recorded statement will be provided in lieu of active participation by a candidate. Using props, charts, or visuals, or displaying campaign literature is prohibited. In accordance with the League policy, the League owns the content of the forums. Audio or video recording by authorized members of the media will be permitted only if agreed by all candidates present. The League maintains the right to record the forum and publish it on League-controlled electronic sites. No other recording will be allowed. No partial transcript or recording may be published without written permission from the League. As moderator, I will be the arbiter of all decisions during the debate. The League believes the responsibility for maintaining good government rests on you, the voters. so we have expectations for you. Please be sure your cell phones are turned off or silenced, and please do not block the doors or the camera. We do have a camera in the middle aisle. Your purpose is to hear from the candidates, so let's focus on their voices, not yours. Please remain seated and silent during the Q&A, unless you are writing or submitting question cards at the table up here. As moderator, I will stop the debate if the audience interrupts. Interruptions reduce the time for the candidates to speak, and we are here to listen to them. To repeat, the league policy permits only authorized recording of these forums. Taking clips or segments is not authorized. The league will post the recording on the League of Women Voter PWM YouTube channel before the election. Any audience member who violates the agreed procedures for the forum or who disrupts the forum by ignoring these audience expectations after being warned may be asked to leave. You will now hear from the two candidates for Port Washington Police District. When the candidates arrived, they drew straws for speaking order. Mr. Staley will be going first for opening remarks and closing, and Mr. McCarthy will be going second for opening remarks and closing. I will now ask the audience to applaud briefly after each candidate's opening statement, and then hold all applause and other responses until after the closing statements. Mr. Staley, please begin.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the library for hosting this event, and the League of Women Voters for holding it, as well as my opponent, who I had to have the date changed, and he acquiesced so we could meet and talk about this. I'd also like to thank all of you for being here. I'm very honored to try and run for re-election to Port Washington Police Commissioner. I'm also pleased that my running mate is a professional like myself. So you have good choices between the two of us. I just happen to think I'm the better choice because I've worked here for 32 years, retired as a deputy chief. I know Port, I know the people. It's the second term of commissioners that I work with. In the first term, we accomplished more in the district than had been accomplished in 20 years. We settled contracts without attorneys. We've built one of the best drone programs, not me personally, but working with the commissioners, one of the best drone programs in New York State. We've hired and I've promoted people to different positions, formed specialized units for certain events to make sure that this community is safe. I am always concerned about the safety of the community, but even more so I'm concerned about the officers that work there and their working conditions. We moved along in a process where we're beginning to be able to possibly get a new headquarters. We know that the building that we are in is inadequate, it's outgrown it. It's too old for us to function in. We've had a couple of opportunities to get other buildings. I don't know why, but for some reason, they fell by the wayside. So I am running to try and see what I promised in the very beginning. And that would be that we would get a new place, new headquarters for this department. That's it. I don't need 3 minutes at this point.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank you for coming here and attending tonight's important event. And I want to acknowledge the League of Women Voters for arranging this important forum and for giving me the opportunity to tell you who I am, why I'm running for police commissioner, my core beliefs of professionalism, experience, and leadership, and why I'm the best candidate for this position. My name is Sean McCarthy. I'm 61. I grew up in Manhasset. I married my wife Lisa in 1998, and we moved to Port in 1999, just before the birth of our first child. We lived on Reed Avenue for the next 24 years, and we raised our 3 children, Caroline, Tara, and John, here, and they attended Port schools where they thrived. We just recently moved into another home in Port this past August. I plan on being here in Port Washington for a long time. I am 100% in on this town. I joined the Nassau County Police Department in 1985 and served for 33 years. I came up through the ranks and I retired as a deputy chief and chief of support services. I love policing. And the department that I work for provided me the opportunity to compile an extremely diverse skill set that encompassed not just police work, but the business of police work. Budgets, training, project management, facilities acquisition, vehicles, IT, records management. All the things that this job as commissioner requires. I am the best candidate for this commissioner's position, and I would like your vote. My campaign is based on 3 pillars: professionalism, integrity, and leadership. My experience running police precincts has exposed me to many different styles of policing. I have a lot of tools. And I'm asking for your vote to support the chief in making this the best, most professional police department we've ever deployed. Integrity. The success of the Port Washington Police Department has been grounded in integrity. That we will be fair. That we will faithfully follow through on our commitments to the best of our ability. That we will always try to be who we say we are. This is a pretty high bar for any organization. The talented men and women of the Port Washington Police Department will always strive to achieve this. Leadership. I am completely committed to this important work and to this community. I'm running because I've worked for some great leaders and I know what can be accomplished. This department is finally moving forward on some long overdue projects that will require vision, communication, community involvement, commitment, decisiveness, and unity. And I believe that along with the other commissioners and the chiefs, we can provide the leadership to move this department forward into the future. And that's why I'm here to ask for your vote on December 12th.
We will now begin with the questions. Audience, please hold all of your applause until the end of the forum. Mr. Staley, the first question starts with you. What do you consider the most important responsibilities of a police commissioner?
I believe that a police commissioner must have the integrity to lead the department. The policing field, in its mentality, is 20 years behind the time in our thinking. We need to change the way that we police things. I've learned this through many community organizations, and finally now the police community is beginning to realize that they are policing in the wrong manner. One of the great things about this particular police department is that people are not afraid of the police here. Children are not afraid of the police here. I believe you have to have a diverse police force, and it's the job of the commissioners to make sure that that diversity exists, that the change in police thinking comes about, because it's the only way for a department to truly move forward. And with that, as I would say, having the ability to make those type of decisions to change policing is what's required from commissioners.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What do you consider the most important responsibilities of a police commissioner?
The most important responsibilities of police commissioners as a board are to provide leadership, policy, guidance to the department as a whole. I think it's a non-operational role. This is not cops and robbers. This is budgets, this is grant acquisition, this is policy. I think the most important role of the commissioners is to serve as a bridge between the police department and the community. To take some of that work from the executive staff of the police department who are busy doing operational things and running the police department on a day-to-day basis. The commissioners need to be out there in the community, gathering input, taking feedback, and altering their positions to accommodate the realities of the communities that they are serving.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, you start the next question. To the incumbent commissioner, how much of your time have you found necessary to devote to fulfilling your duties on the police commission? Similarly, for the challenger, what time commitment do you anticipate will be required for you to fulfill your duties on the commission?
So I can't speak as an incumbent, but I anticipate that the requirements, that the time required to do this job successfully, with everything that's going on, could be fairly significant. We have a lot going on. The building is obviously in its, it seems to be in its infant stages for the community, but the executive staff of the police department has been at this for a long time, decades, as a matter of fact. And now the work really begins in terms of planning, community buy-in. There needs to be extensive outreach to the community to get their input on parking, lighting, traffic patterns, all the things that are going to make this building a part of the community. This department and this building is not going to land on the community. It's going to be of the community. It will be part of the community. The only way that that is possible, that we spend a lot of time out there getting feedback from people.
Mr. Staley?
Yes. When it comes to a time commitment, as a commissioner, as you know, we hold regularly scheduled meetings. At least that's all I thought we held. We can hold weekly meetings, morning meetings, evening meetings. In terms of the amount of time that you sometimes have to put in, I know it felt like a full-time job to do everything that has to be done. Many things come up, issues with the personnel that have to go into executive session. You were gonna be called in for that meeting. It's not a regularly scheduled meeting. As a matter of fact, one of the things I often say is, please don't juggle my schedule around because I have other meetings. So the amount of time that you have to devote, you have to be committed to being there and solving, as Mr. McCarthy said, a lot of issues that have nothing to do with actual policing, but it has to do with policy.
Thank you. And Mr. Staley, the next question goes to you. What are the top 3 challenges you think the Port Washington Police Department faces right now, and what are some possible solutions?
One, I would say, is retaining good hiring and retaining good personnel. I know that we have let some of better candidates slip away from us because unfortunately, until recently, a lot of our benefits were not as well as other departments. We have, since I've been here, instituted a 401A retirement plan, which is very attractive for the membership and people who are retiring, handling their retirement funds. Took years to get that done. Again, when you say what are some of the biggest challenges, of course, the building, which is going on for decades, it's just been lingering. I do not know why. I wasn't there for 8 years. I've only been there for 3 years, and we've made all of this movement within the last 3 years towards acquiring that building. Why it didn't happen before, I cannot blame it on the executive staff or the other commissioners, but it's happening now.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
3 issues. Number one is the facility. I took a tour through the building for about 2 hours, about a week ago. I have a very informed way of looking at police facilities. I've been in hundreds of them, of all types. The facility that they have is insufficient. It is not able to be renovated. The physical lot that they are on, you couldn't knock down that building and build a new one on it. So there are challenges there, and I would put that number one, at least in terms of the police commissioner's job. Number two, I'd say, is training, which is an ongoing challenge for every agency. I think Mr. Staley referred to in his opening remarks that we may be behind the times a bit. I don't think that's true for Washington. But if you're standing still, you're falling behind. So you have to do training and you have to move forward. Police work is evolving incredibly quickly with technology and behaviors. service-oriented department. That's what this town deserves. And every time that the cops interact with somebody, it should be as good an experience as possible for that member of the public. Cop may have done it 1,000 times, but that may be the only time that person ever deals with a police officer, and I want them to walk away feeling that they were well served, heard, and that it was as good an experience as it could be.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, the next question goes to you. What is your experience and expertise in financial management and executive leadership?
Okay, 90 seconds. So I was the Deputy Commanding Officer of the Personnel and Accounting Bureau. I was the HR Supervisor. I was the OSHA Trainer and Safety Coordinator. I was the Budget Manager as the Deputy Commanding Officer, and we put together budgets for 2 years. Last year I was doing budgets about $650 million for the police department. I presented to the legislature on that budget. I was the Deputy Commanding Officer of the Police Academy, and I was in charge of the recruit training program for 18 months. I was the Commanding Officer of the 3rd Precinct. I was the Commanding Officer of the 6th Precinct. I was Commanding Officer of Patrol Precincts and the Executive Officer of the Patrol Division. I left as the Chief of Support Services, where we did facilities, buildings, vehicles, records management, prisoner processing, IT, capital projects, and maintenance. So outside of that, I got nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Yes, well, for about 40 years, I've been in community service. I'm the chairperson of the Economic Opportunity Commission, which is the official anti-poverty organization for Nassau County. I happen to run Cal Bay Housing, an 88 apartment complex. It's affordable. I've been doing that for over 15 years. I've done the budgets. I've reviewed the budgets. I've sat with auditors. I haven't handled as much money as Sean, but I've handled it quite efficiently, turned organizations around in terms of their financing so that they were in the red and they are now comfortably in the black with a substantial amount of safety nets in terms of revenue.
Thank you. And Mr. Staley, the next question goes to you.
Yes.
Diversity of opinions, race, and background more broadly are important when making decisions that affect a community. What are your thoughts on the current makeup of the police force from a diversity perspective? Do you see a need for improvement, and if so, what are some specific actions you would push for?
Okay, well, I can tell you, having worked at Port Washington for 32 years, it was not a very diverse police force. But over the years, it has grown, and this executive staff has moved to make it more diverse. If you look around our community, it is changing rapidly. More and more people are moving into this community, and they're of different races, religions, backgrounds. It's very important that we try and keep up with the ethnicity of the population. You cannot have one ethnicity policing a community that's a completely different ethnicity. Otherwise, you have a police state. So it's very important that we continue to diversify our police force and help with the growth of the diversity that's going on in this police district.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
So, one of the nicest things about Port Washington is its diversity in religion, in language. In that way, it's kind of unique on the mound. It's one of the most diverse places. And the police department should always reflect the populations that they serve. Same time? Did everybody hear me? So I think there's things, I think the department's made great strides in altering its makeup to be more reflective of the community. I think where we've fallen short maybe is in language, right? So we need a bunch of Spanish-speaking officers, and how do you do that? So you reach out into the Hispanic community and make sure that they take the test. You can weight your civil service in different ways. You can give veterans credits, you can give resident credits, you can give credits for fire department experience, you can give credits for language. So there's things you can do to move the needle a couple of degrees and maybe get a little bit better mix of languages, talents, faces, dispositions, and genders. This police department's done a really good job in the last decade moving toward, they have a lot more females. They're just a lot more diverse than they used to be. This is a problem, this is a national problem, not just a Port Washington problem. Port Washington's a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of the measures it's taken to meet this challenge.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, the next question goes to you. What drug prevention programs currently exist in Port Washington? As police commissioner, what could you do to improve them?
So I don't really know what drug prevention problems are currently extant in Port Washington. What I can tell you is that for 5 years I did work in the junior high schools, 5th and 6th graders, delivering a version of the National DARE program. And that was my day job for 5 years. So I know that we have terrific healthcare services on this part of Long Island. We have some good stuff. We have St. Francis, we have Northwell, we have Winthrop, not too far south. There's plenty of things. We have a very active and engaged outreach communities in Port Washington. One of the best things about this place is the residents don't sit back and let other people do the work. They're out there doing the work. And they're in a lot of the programs that make Port Washington such a great place to live. They're at the PRC, they are at the Community Chest, they are at Residents Forward, they are at, I'm gonna miss a bunch of them, they're at Landmark, they're at the Business Improvement District. There's no shortage of people in Port Washington willing to pick up the load and carry.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Yes, well, many years ago, along with the school and religious organization, we went for training and we formed a group which established a drug and alcohol-free awareness day. As you know, many people who are affluent and can afford a second place may go on vacation and would leave their child at home, and we would come to an unsupervised party with 200 children running wild outside in the neighborhood. I've done that many times, but I also work with CAC and EOC, and we have drug prevention programs right here, CAC being one of them, if people need some assistance. I'm very concerned about it because, as you know, fentanyl is one of the new dangerous drugs that is being experimented with. You usually don't have fentanyl addicts, you have fentanyl deaths. And so I think it's very important that we look at drug prevention programs in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Staley, the next question goes to you. If you are this is regarding the proposed police headquarters. If you're elected, this will be your project. Please tell the community, given the terrible traffic that already exists on Main Street, why the Knowles Funeral Home and the 5 houses on Webster is the appropriate location for this project.
What I will say about it is, one, there is enough property there to build an appropriate headquarters. One of the things about that property is there's possibly 3 outlets: Webster Avenue, Mackey Avenue, and Main Street. So I don't necessarily believe that we would cause too much of traffic interference. One of the things that happens is our patrol cars don't relieve at headquarters. They relieve within their sectors. So they're not really even there at headquarters. People were worried about the sirens blaring at night. I go, well, you got a fire department that their sirens going off constantly, and people don't mind that. It's not like we're running out of headquarters. You're not gonna see 10, 15 cars with their lights and sirens coming out of headquarters, trying to get on Main Street or trying to get on Mackey Avenue. So I do not believe that it will be a traffic flow problem having a headquarters there.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, some question?
So, am I close enough? I definitely believe that there's going to be more traffic than there currently is with 6 derelict houses and a closed funeral home. We're gonna add traffic. It's not gonna be significant. I believe that remote relieving points are a great asset. That's what I was used to in the PD in Nassau County. The building is going to do less in terms of impacting traffic than 3 or 4 businesses would in that area. And I think the businesses that are adjacent to a new police headquarters will enjoy having it there. I think they will enjoy increased foot traffic. I had a restaurant. If I had a restaurant that was near a police station, those guys eat, right? So I would be pretty happy with that. Going forward, before a shovel is put in the ground, there are impact studies that the residents are going to be a part of. There's going to be traffic. It is a reality. But the fact is that the station house is going to be much closer to where the bulk of calls already take place. Transport times and response times should be shorter as a result of that. It's an issue, but we can definitely meet this.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, the next question goes to you. This is also related to the purchase of the funeral home property. The cost of $39 million relating to purchasing the property and constructing a new police building. What modifications to the police proposal would you be willing to suggest and support to reduce the total impact on taxpayers?
Well, I'd have to see the plan to answer that in an intelligent way. Anything else would be purely speculation. But I do know facilities. While I was in support, we built a new 1st precinct, we built a new 4th precinct, we built a new 8th precinct. And they're more alike than they are different. There are some commonalities to any police function. So I think I'm gonna have good experience to intelligently look at a set of plans and make some informed decisions with budget in mind. 39 million is speculation. I know that the replacement of the 2nd precinct, they just bonded for 33.5 million. But the 1st precinct went up in 2013 for about 15 million. The 8th precinct went up in 2019 for just shy of 30 million. So everything gets more expensive, but I will take this job with the eye of keeping the bottom line as trim as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Yes, I very much support the project, but as my opponent said, I haven't seen a true blueprint of what it will be. And I know I have constructed buildings before in 5 towns. There's always overruns. There's always gonna be different in cost. So nobody's gonna be able to give you a fixed number and tell you that's accurately what this is gonna cost us. And it's going to, again, fall on the back of the taxpayers. You've had the sewer district, you have the water district, they have all floated bonds. So to tell you exactly how much it's gonna cost, I in fact think that you have to take a good, close look at it to see if you can reduce the cost of this headquarters building at that Knowles property.
Thank you. I'm gonna combine the next 2 questions. Mr. Staley, this is for you. There has been a lot of discussion and promises for many years about greater community involvement and proactive transparency. In general, can you comment on this? And then specifically, do you think the community should have a say in the location and cost of the new headquarters?
I believe the community should have a say in anything where it's going to come out of the taxpayer's pocket. You just don't build things and then tax the community and say, well, we did it without any of your input. So I do support the community having a say. I, myself, ex-Commissioner Staley and Chief Del Muro actually attended a seminar on how to build a police headquarters, the steps that you have to take. It is a very complicated process. And they say you have to eventually have community input. Otherwise, they're not gonna be happy. There's not much that they can do about it, but you don't want a community that's not happy with the police department being where it is. So we need a lot of community involvement, and you definitely need community input in reference to the building of the department.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
So I don't think you eventually get community input, you start with community input. They have to be part of the process. They're not infinitely a part of the process, because you will never please every single person out there. Nothing would move forward if that was the case. But people in Port Washington deserve to be heard. They deserve to express their concerns. They deserve to have those concerns addressed. There's going to be compromise, and there's going to be change. All of which is going to result in a building that the police department can use successfully and enjoy, and that the community can be proud of. If you look for community outreach, during my time in the 3rd and the 6th precincts, I attended hundreds of community meetings, which I either was invited to or I hosted, all with the purpose of, what kind of community do you want to live in, right? We're here for the community. We're not landing on the community, we're a part of it, and we're here to make Port Washington the best place it can possibly be.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, the next question goes to you. What can the police department do to help the community to deal with recent examples of anti-Semitism and other hate crimes in our town?
In my life, I never thought that I would have friends of mine who were Jewish tell me that they were afraid to go out in public or to congregate together. I didn't think that's where we were. So I think we have to band together as a community. This is partly a police department job, this is a community job, right? Public safety isn't like, we get paid as police officers, but you can't do it alone. This is a community contract. I think our officers have done a great job reaching out to temples and synagogues and being physically present, addressing their leaderships, being visible. They had some amazing events here. They had an event at Beth Israel, which was fantastic. They had the installation at the lawn of the landmark, which was an incredibly moving experience. And that was met and attended by the community, not the Jewish community, the community. There were representatives there from interfaith. It was guarded by the Port Washington Police Department. It was something that it had to touch your heart, and it was something we could all be proud of.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Yes, unfortunately, in these divided times in the world, you are seeing anti-Semitism raise its ugly head. But it's not just there. In the Asian community, during COVID, people who were not Chinese but just looked Asian were being attacked. My grandchildren are Filipino, and they were traveling around the country, and they had to be very careful during the time of COVID. The Hispanic immigrants that are now influxing the town. It's a different type of culture. It's not just anti-Semitism, it's anti-them as opposed to us. And I go, well, who is us? I want to know who us is, if it's not all of us. We're either on this ship together and it sails, or we're on the ship and it sinks. So that's how I feel about the community involvement with the bias that is going on. We need a lot of community involvement.
Thank you. Mr. Staley, the next question goes to you.
Yes.
Would you publicize the data about crime in Port Washington? Why or why not?
Yes, I think you can publicize the crime. You certainly would not publicize active investigations that are going on, because that may interfere with the operation and the investigation. I believe we actually have low crime statistics, and sometimes I think a lot of the crimes are not reported because they do not want police involved. People I know in the minority community will complain to me. I said, well, why didn't you call the police? I'm not gonna call, they won't call the police, but there's criminal stuff going on. It's not part of our culture to call the police up into our neighborhood. That's something that has to change. The Hispanic community, you have a lot of people in the Hispanic community that are not here legally. Last people they're thinking about calling is the police. So when they're victims of crimes, we're not gonna hear about it. But publishing the statistics that go on in this community is not a problem to me. As I said, we're relatively a crime-free community. We do have crime though.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. So, they do a good job tracking the numbers, and I think that, those numbers should be public. There are standard formats for reporting crimes that are promulgated by, the FBI. There's national standards for that. We're probably already in compliance with it. As far as underreporting of crime, and as it relates to immigration status, my position is this. I can't speak for the department because I'm not in the department yet, but I'll tell you how I personally stand on it. Absent criminality, I'm not interested in your immigration status. If there is a minor crime, a woman has a shoplifting warrant now, for instance, and that shouldn't prevent her from reporting domestic violence, right? If we shut people out of access to professional law enforcement services, what we're doing is forcing them into an alternative, a gang type. They're gonna find justice somewhere, and we will have driven them into the arms of gangs and alternative sources of justice. It's a huge mistake.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy, the next question goes to you. Is it necessary to have 3 commissioners and a police force of 80?
Yeah, I think we're worth it. The reason is because it's not a commissioner in a traditional sense of the word, right? It's not blue bloods, right? This is it's a non-operational. We have a chief, we have an executive staff. They are the operational experts. They're the ones who know the place. They're the ones who know the people. They're the ones who move the dots around the map. They're the ones who get the actual work done. You need a board, and that's what the police commissioner, that's why there's 3, there's no ties. So I think you do need 3 spots. I don't even know what the job pays, to be honest with you.
You don't want to know.
That's probably why they couldn't afford the 3 of us, but I do think you need professional oversight and accountability, and you need that bridge between the sworn members and between the members of the public that they serve. I think we're an asset.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
I believe that the 3 commissioners are necessary. As I said, I'm working with my second board, and we've gotten more done in 3 years than has been done in 20 years. Different board members have brought different skills. One of our present commissioners brought something to the table where we invested our money differently, and it almost doubled and tripled what we were earning. That was a business skill that I certainly didn't have, the other commissioners didn't have it. So he brought a skill in that really helped in terms of the police department. Other people do other things in the community, and they bring those ideas that one, like you said, it's not blue bloods. One commissioner, sometimes it's too much power for one person to have. So that then the department itself starts to turn, not the way it should be, but by how that one person did. 3 different people with different ideas, and we do have conflicts. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. If everybody's thinking the same, somebody's not thinking. So I like the idea of having 3 commissioners on that board.
Thank you. Mr. Staley, the next question goes to you. For both candidates, what is your primary residence, and at what address do you receive benefits, pension, and other? Yes.
Okay, I own a house in Queens, and that's where I get a lot of my business mail. But I primarily stay at 5C Cal Bay Apartments here in Port Washington. So, I don't know what you mean by primary. I also have a house in Pennsylvania when I can get to it, but, I'm primarily here most of the time.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
I'm at One North Court.
Thank you. I think this is the last question, so Mrs. McCarthy, this one goes to you. Do you support or not all elections allowing absentee ballots or voting? Going forward, will you commit to voting in favor of allowing the disabled and others who need to vote absentee for the police district elections, even if it is less convenient or costs a little bit more?
Yeah, democracy is expensive. You know, I don't think I will always be in favor of absentee ballots. Very briefly, the commissioners moved to suspend them, and just as immediately they reversed themselves, right? They had the gumption to see that that was an act that could be interpreted as disenfranchising voters. So democracy is not convenient, and that's too bad, right? So I would always support having absentee ballots.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Yes, I was one of the commissioners that voted absolutely not. I would never take away anybody's right to vote, for many different reasons. I'm a veteran. Veterans were serving across the ocean that live here. You'd be taking their right to vote. It's able people who cannot get to the poll. You're taking away their right to vote. It is not just about absentee ballots. It's about anything that would infringe on a person's right to vote here in America.
Thank you. So before we take the closing statements from the candidates, I would like to remind voters that Election Day is Tuesday, December 12th, from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Polish American Culture Hall. A reminder, the recording of the forum will also be available on the League of Women Voter of Port Washington Manhasset YouTube channel within a week. Now to the closing statements. Please offer applause to both candidates for their willingness to answer your questions tonight and together on the same stage. Mr. Staley, you're first.
Well, again, it's an honor to serve as your commissioner. I'm looking forward to continue serving as your commissioner. I know Port, I know people, I know your grandparents, your children, their children. I've always walked these streets, and I know this town. So I'm not just someone who is a professional, I'm your professional. I've been trained all over this country, and I think I would do a wonderful job serving this community one more term. I can tell you, I won't be here for 21 years. I wouldn't do it that long, but I'd certainly like a chance to continue to serve you and see this headquarters done. So, please come out and vote for me December 12th.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
So, Port Washington is special. We've alluded to that a couple of times. It's beautiful, it's diverse, it's close to the city, but it's not the city. It has a real Main Street with a bunch of diverse local businesses, owner-operated. It's got an amazing library. It's got these great community groups, the Community Chest, Residents Forward, Friends of the Library, PYA, Port Soccer. I have a list. I'm going to leave people out. PAL, the Business Improvement District, Parent Resource Center, Landmark. I'm not going to get them. It has excellent schools that foster civic mindedness and has religious institutions that bind us together and move us forward as a group, despite our differences. The schools and the churches, the synagogues, the community groups, and those public institutions, they are able to do their work because they operate in an environment of safety and security. And that environment is built on the work of our first responders, and especially our excellent Port Washington Police Department. It takes a great deal of ongoing effort by the police department to maintain and enhance that safety and security. It is a constant effort. You have to evolve, you have to train, you have to grow, you have to engage. It never stops, and it only gets more complicated. I am the best candidate to ensure that that activity continues in the vigorous manner that it has in the past. And I am hoping that you will turn out and vote for me on December 12th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. Candidates, the League appreciates your willingness to answer questions from voters thoughtfully and candidly, and civil discourse with your challenger. And we salute your commitment to serving your fellow citizens by running to serve in this office. Thank you. Thank you, the audience. Thank you for your thoughtful questions, for spending the evening educating yourselves on both candidates, and for your engagement with democracy. Voters like you keep our democracy thriving. Thank you.